Hi friends, John Moore here, and I'm a shamanic teacher. I live in Maine in the US, and today I'm going to talk to you about learning how to embrace your shadow self. Now, I've done a number of different videos on the shadow explaining what the shadow is. So I won't go heavily into that, but I'll touch on it in a nutshell. Our shadow, or shadow self, are the exiled parts of ourselves. Poet Robert Bly described the shadow as a black bag that we drag behind us and throw everything that is too painful to look at. And this includes our psychological wounds, our secret and hidden desires, anything about us that drives us crazy or that society has told us is wrong or broken. There's a lot of shame involved in the shadow and what we keep in there. So why would we want to embrace this? Why, if this is stuff that's shameful to us or stuff that is quote unquote bad, why would we want to embrace it? Why would we want to, um, why wouldn't we want to just keep everything still in the shadow? Well, there's a number of reasons for this. And one is that stuff's not really supposed to be there. These are parts of ourselves that are still active in our lives that are going to act up, and sometimes ways that are surprising or unpleasant. So, for example, when we get triggered by somebody's behavior, being triggered meaning we have a disproportionate, sometimes surprising emotional reaction to something, that's an indication that there's a wound, and we don't know where it came from. That's an indication that there's a wound or something in the shadow that hasn't been healed. The other thing to remember about the shadow is that often stuff winds up in there because, our parents, our culture, our education, our media, whatever, has told us that we're wrong, that we're broken. So we hide away those parts of ourselves. And that's not really healthy either. We really want to be able to stand fully integrated in ourselves and be powerful and be authentic. And we can really only do that if parts of us aren't in hiding, right? So this work, in really embracing your shadow self, is about becoming vulnerable with yourself. If you have somebody, it could be a therapist, but it could be, somebody that is really respectful of you and is going to love you unconditionally. That can be hard to find. Then this might be something you share with them, but this is work that you're going to do on your own. So, how do we begin? How do we begin this shadow work? Well, we begin by exploring what's in our shadow. And I did a whole other video, maybe more than one, on how to do that, methods of doing that. So I won't go over this now, but I will link to that video from this video so you can come back and watch that one. The Once you start to understand the things that are in your shadow, the things that are coming up from your shadow, um, remember that it's shame that keeps those things there, right? The shame is the idea, the belief, the feeling that we are somehow wrong or broken or sinful or what have you, right? For what's in there. So the first thing we need to do is we need to start to approach our shadow items without shaming ourselves, right? This will encourage them to come out, and we can even personalize them, have conversations with them, right? So I'll give you an example. Let's say that I get triggered every time there's a commercial on TV. I don't watch a lot of commercial TV, but comes on and I get furious. How could they interrupt my programming, whatever? Um, I'm going to stop, once the emotion has calmed down and say, man, that was really kind of weird. Like, why would that bother me so much? It's just a part of life, right? That be so personal to me? And then I would maybe start to have an internal dialogue and say, okay, part of me that gets triggered every time a commercial comes on TV, thank you very much. There's clearly something important that you want me to pay attention to. This is where the shame dissolves. And we attribute, this is an important thing, we attribute positive intent to that characteristic. That is so important that I'm going to repeat it. We attribute positive intent to the behavior or the characteristic. This means that every part of us, all of our behaviors, including things that are um, addictions or things where we're being reactive, there is always a positive intent behind them. Now, the way that they come out in our lives might not be positive. The behavior might not be positive. Think of a toddler throwing a temper tantrum. That's not positive behavior, but the intent of this toddler is to get the attention that they're craving. That's the positive intent. So being triggered for me is the positive intention by that is to cause us from feeling wounded by something again, or to call attention to something that has wounded us. So when I get triggered, wait a little while to calm down and say, wow, that was really weird. Okay, part of me that is wounded, that is expressing this trigger, thank you for this. Thank you for your intention. Thank you. I'd like to learn more about this intention. And you can have this sort of internal dialogue. Once you start to become aware of what's in your shadow, you can dialogue with it. Attribute positive attention to it. If you're not shaming yourself, if you're attributing positivity to these parts, they will become more apparent to you. It is shame that keeps things in the shadow. This is how we begin to embrace and say, oh, wow, how fantastic it is that you have such a positive intention for me, that you want to protect me from feeling wounded again, or you want to protect me from this type of interaction, or you want to protect me from this. The same thing is true with our hidden desires as they pop up. It's interesting. There's so much. We'll talk just about sexuality for a moment, because that's really where I see this happening. That's incredibly obvious, but it can be way more than just sexuality. It can be any sort of hidden desires, right? I want to learn to play the piano, or I want to be a professional boxer, or whatever. And I feel like I could never do that because my parents always told me this, or my, whatever. And so I locked that part away because I couldn't stand that social rejection. That's a big part of what's in our shadow, is protecting us from social rejection, right? By our parents, by our peers, by our culture, by the imaginary friends we have in the media, that sort of thing. So look at these desires. Look at things like sexual desires that crop up, and sometimes behaviors are self-destructive. Like, we may get into sexual relationships with people that are repeated and they're wrong for us, or love relationships that are wrong for us, repeating them. Start to have a conversation with yourself. Wow, we seem to be repeating this pattern. What's going on here for me? Am I trying to repeat this so I can heal from it? Or am I trying to repeat this because it's familiar or in some way safe to me? And thank your shadow for steering you in that direction. But then explain to it, hey, there's a better way. There's a better way for me to get into a healthy relationship, a healthy love relationship, a healthy sexual relationship, not repeating these old patterns, but can meet your actual needs. Needs for intimacy, needs for connection, needs for support, and love, and the things that we get out of relationships. Okay, so sometimes we go about things the wrong way, but always with the right intention. And we can look at a lot of human behavior in that way. So another indicator of what's in our shadow is the things that other people do that drive us crazy, or characteristics that people have that drive us crazy. And start to explore, what is it about that person that drives me crazy? And thank you for trying to protect me from some characteristic that I'm perceiving here, or B, trying to cover up the way that I feel like I'm similar to that person, but I've been shamed about it. Normally, when there's something like we have a pet peeve about other people, or something that's driving us a little bit crazy about them, or something about their appearance just sets us off. It's something about ourselves that we've buried, that you know that's what's getting triggered. It's some part of ourselves, maybe um, you know, I uh, I can't stand people that are lazy. I don't know. I'll just take an example. So let's say I can't stand people that are lazy. It just drives me crazy, even if it doesn't affect me personally, which doesn't make logically doesn't make a lot of sense. If it doesn't affect you, why should you really care about it? But let's say that people who I perceive as being lazy really drive me crazy. Um, what's likely is that at some point in time, um, my parents or somebody in school or somebody like that called me lazy, or told me that my laziness was unacceptable, or and how many times did I hear that? I've got ADHD that wasn't diagnosed until I was you know actually not that long ago, into an adulthood. And as a child, I didn't have executive functioning skills to do things like organize my room, or, I had a messy room and a messy desk, and my homework was a mess, and all of these things. And it was always about, you're lazy, you don't care, you blah, blah, blah. There, you have a character flaw. Well, those are really shaming behaviors towards somebody who is neurodivergent. And we didn't know a lot about that stuff back then. We're learning much more now. But if I had that characteristic, man, I can't stand people who are messy or lazy, or whatever, or out of control in some way. That could be where it comes from. It could be from the fact that I was shamed about that as a younger person, and then so there's an overreaction to seeing that in other people. This is what psychologists call projection. I take what's inside of me and I project it onto other people. So here's an interesting thing you can do. When you find yourself projecting, and we all project all the time in all of our interactions, but if you find yourself projecting in a really negative way, oh, look at that guy, he's so lazy, whatever, um, say, you know what? I love that person unconditionally, despite the fact that my first reaction to them was, look at that person, they're lazy. Because that projection, that perception that you have, and you trust me, you'll justify it. You'll find logical reasons to have your opinion. Oh, that person's so lazy. That person is so uncaring. That person is so whatever it is that you're projecting. Oh, well, let me give you the 30 items that I have cataloged about that person. You'll find all kinds of logic to do that. Know that that's what it is. Know that's exactly what it is. You're having this feeling coming up out of your shadow self, and you're projecting it onto this other person, and then you're finding logical reasons to back it up. Most of that process is unconscious, which is why we're like, no, that's not why I'm doing that. It's because you're not conscious of it. Now, what happens if you start to make that conscious, but you don't shame yourself about it? Oh, I'm projecting this person is lazy and it's driving me crazy. What is it inside of me? Where is that part of me, frequently from childhood, that needs extra love and needs extra understanding and needs extra compassion? How can I project that? How can I project love and compassion and unconditional respect for another human being onto that person that's triggering me? And that will be applied to yourself, because you're already projecting. Your whole perception of that person is based on stuff that's inside of you. Um, and very, that's not just frequently the case. That's always the case. I don't know if it was Jung who said this or not, but somebody did. And it's brilliant, that perception equals projection. We do not have, we think we perceive things objectively, and that is a lie that our ego tells us. So these are some of the ways that we can begin to embrace our shadow self. Once you do that, healing will take place naturally. More information out of your shadow will come up. This is the begin to integration. Now, sometimes the shadow aspects or your ego will tell you this lie that let's say I have a secret sexual desire, hidden sexual desire that I don't want to act out on. I want to go, I'm in a committed monogamous relationship and I want to go, um, I want to go to orgies and not tell my partner. Um, I'm making that up. That's not true. But let's say that's a desire. I know we think by embracing that, sometimes we think that by embracing that we will behave in those ways. And that's a lie. We won't. Right? If I take a trigger, for example, I use this example frequently. Somebody cuts me off in traffic and I want to chase them down and punch them in the nose, right? I think a thought may come up that if I embrace that aspect, if I say, oh my God, it's okay that you have that feeling, that I'm going to act on that all of a sudden I'm going to get angry and punch that person in the nose, and then I'm going to wind up in jail and it'll be terrible. No, nothing could be farther from the truth. That is exactly the opposite. We are more likely to act in reactive, non thoughtful ways when things remain in our shadow. When we push them down, they're pushing back against us. Jung said that which we resist persists. So, embracing your shadow self is about non resistance, it's about love, it's about acceptance. The opposite of resistance is acceptance. It's not attachment. We have attachment and we have aversion. The opposite of resisting, pushing away, is accepting, is loving, right? So if I push my kids away and say, "Don't bother me while I'm at the dinner table," or "Don't bother me while I'm doing this," the opposite of that is not attachment to them. The opposite of that is accepting them. Okay, what is it? What is it that you need? What is it? Let me give you the love that you need in this moment, and then I can continue on with my work, and all of us will be less disturbed, right? So treat your shadow as if it is your child that you love unconditionally, because in a very real way, it is. You gave birth to this being, whether you're male or female or non-binary, you gave birth to this being and it's a part of you. Okay? So give it love. So we begin by understanding what's there. We accept what's there with loving compassion and start the exploration of, okay, why did I react that way? If you think that getting angry at yourself will make things better next time you get triggered, the exact opposite is true. That's not true. That you will behave the same exact way the next time, until you start to accept that there's a reason behind that behavior. I'm not saying accept the behavior. You have the conversation with the part that says, hey, listen, thank you so much for looking out for me. But the way that this happened, I really lost control, and that could wind up in a really bad way for me. So, how do we come to some, agreement so that you can get what you need, and in a way that's safer or saner or makes more sense for me and provides more safety for everybody involved? Once we do this, once we start accepting these parts of ourselves, these parts that have the wounded parts, the parts with hidden desires, the parts with that we've hidden away because we're ashamed of them, shame starts to dissolve. Love dissolves shame, right? And these parts become more integrated. They become more parts of ourselves where we can make decisions. We can say, gosh, I don't like the way that I don't like being disrespected, or the way that person has talked to me, or the way, that person is behaving in traffic. I can, feel a little bit of anger about it, but not go over the top. Or I can alleviate a situation where, I can say to somebody, hey, when you said this, it made me really angry, and it might not have been your intention to make me really angry, but I wanted to let you know how I reacted to that. And maybe in the future, here's a different way to behave towards me, right? So we can work through our problems, we can make choices. If we delegate to our shadow, meaning we leave everything up to whatever is there without kind of working on it, taking care of it, then we have no choices. You are taking away part of your free will, part of your decision making ability, and leaving things up to instinct that might not be serving you very well. So I hope this is helpful. Please check out my other videos on Shadow. I also have a membership tier that you can join here that's quite reasonable, that provides support for this channel and the work that I'm doing, but also allows you to get perks like members only videos and things like that. And with that, I love you all. I will talk to you very soon.